Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Armaly. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success for ESG. Customer Success is a service company, and I want to thank you for joining us today on our monthly webinar series called Customer Success Unlocked. And we think our webinar series, we consider it as a vital part of our strategy for educating the market about how you can think about addressing various customer success challenges and opportunities, and we're grateful you're joining us today. At ESG, we focus our energy on helping companies build and operationalize customer success organizations or to transform their existing ones. Through our strategies, processes, and people, we help CS organizations strengthen their relationship to their customer community, improve their metrics, and accomplish their ultimate goals for reducing churn, increasing retention, and increasing authentic advocacy. The topic of today's webinar is Customer Success Ignite a Company Transformation. Before I introduce our guest today, I just need to inform you of a few small details about the webinar. It's being recorded, and that recording will be made available usually within 24 hours to all the registrants. We're going to have a conversation for about 45 to 50 minutes, and we'll try to leave the remainder of the hour to respond to the audience questions. Please submit any questions that come to your mind during the webinar in the Q&A window. We'll be keeping an eye on it and may bring a pertinent question in during the conversation if it makes sense at that moment. Otherwise, we'll save it for the end. We enjoy audience engagement, so feel free to let everyone know in the chat where you're logging in from in the world. You can also use the chat feature if you just feel like sharing a thought with us about the topic. Engagement doesn't have to mean you have to ask a question. So thanks for your attendance and participation. Our guest today is Lara Barnes, the Global Vice President of Customer Success and Renewals at Sitecore. In her over 20-year career, besides being at Sitecore for the last 5 years, Lara has worked for easily recognizable names such as Oracle, Facebook, and Microsoft, in addition to holding roles at a number of other companies. And as I look at her resume, it strikes me that she's perhaps unintentionally become an expert in change management, owing to all the time she's been in the middle of having to ensure that her acquired company makes the necessary pivots expected by new owners and executives. I'll be very transparent and say two things at this point. Number one, ESG has been very pleased to be working with Sitecore and with Lara and her team over the last few months. And number two, I've not met anyone in my career who parallels so well my experience and passion for making things work at both cross-functional organizational levels and at the level where tasks and service delivery are executed by people, the level that is so critical in determining whether mergers and acquisitions are ultimately successful. Lara, welcome to the show. Would you like to take a minute to say more about yourself and perhaps educate the audience a bit about Sitecore?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's a great introduction. It's actually 25 years, which makes me feel really old, in working in customer success, business development, sales, commercial environments, and running teams. So my passion is absolutely running teams. And in half of that tenure, I've been working in SaaS companies, and a lot of it has been building out functions. So either coming in and doing something from scratch, or coming in and actually reviving and enhancing, improving metrics. So I'm very strong operationally, commercially, but also love leading teams and building teams of fantastic individuals. So my role at the moment is customer success and renewals, and I've built the whole thing from scratch. I was the first CS person in, and we're now we're 70 of us. We're running just over 3,000 customers and over 400 million, and that's grown. That's doubled over the past few years since I've been there. So it's a love of leadership, a love of building something from scratch, but also love working with the team that are currently in there, because the difference we've made to the organization from my perspective and where we started and where we are now has been exponential. So what Sitecore does is we create digital connections with customers. So what that really means is we're a composable DXP, and we have 3 clouds. So we have a content management system from strategy to delivery, and that's our content cloud. We have an engagement cloud, which is about unlocking data and analytics across systems and personalization. So we recently bought a number of companies And those companies include our CDP, our personalized modules, our send, which is email, and connect. And then we also have commerce as a cloud too, though. So the third cloud, which delivers differentiated and integrated commerce solutions and experiences using AI. So that's Sitecore overall. And what I do. So I love my job. I absolutely love what I do. And I've really enjoyed working with ESG, because you're helping us get to a point that at one point in my career, probably within the first 6 months of working at Sitecore, I never thought could even be possible, because the enormity of what we needed to go through and get to get this far was actually quite overwhelming. And I can talk you through that a bit later. But the thing that you've really been helping us with is actually putting a customer lifecycle in place across the whole of the business. And I've got a very privileged position in the company to see how our customers are experiencing everything end to end. And we've grown so fast. We're a business of 20 years, so we've grown so fast, and everything's built upon some systems that were evolved from the beginning. So not everything is aligned, and everything is built from scratch, like you see some of these SaaS companies that have built from the ground up. So there are challenges across the board, and what we want to do is we want to put in a better experience for our customers, and that's what you've been helping us do by aligning across all departments and running an incredible workshop over the past 3 months to help us set some of those foundations down.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you for those really kind words. I know my teammates who work closely with your organization will be thrilled to hear that.
Yeah.
So let's get going, Laura. I need to set up this first question with a bit of a lengthy preamble. Anyone who kind of attends these webinars probably would understand I do that regularly. I just feel like I need to give context to this topic. So transformation has been in the business rage for probably the last 7 or 8 years at least, but it really took off, of course, during the pandemic, when companies found themselves scrambling to set up online access for employees and more robust websites and channels for customer engagement and communications. The Boston Consulting Group recently published a research piece based on their looking at 4,000 customers, in which they referred to 3 megatrends that are driving transformation: the adoption of artificial intelligence, climate and sustainability goals, and hybrid work. And here's a quote: "The implication is that companies with a strong transformation capability are aware of their operating environment, understand the potential of broad trends to create both disruptions and opportunities, and are able to pivot as needed. These companies are more future-oriented and resilient. They understand that they need to sow today what they want to harvest in the future." So in my opinion, all that very publicly visible work is just a tip of the iceberg, though, of what true transformation is. The true transformation to me is actually much deeper. It's about changing the way individuals do their job in measurable ways, and in relation to the tools they use, the people they collaborate with, and the stakeholders whose needs they try to address. It's all about doing those things with more precision and efficiency. Digital provides the means for demonstrating results in ways that analog could only provide hunches for. All of that improved productivity flows up into the kinds of resilience and future orientation that BCG talks about. So if you accept that definition, how do you think about the role of the customer success organization in a company's journey to transformation, Laura?
It's a great question. Something that I really do stand for and pivot towards. I believe that the customer is central to the company's success and the journey that they have to go on. And nowadays, if you aren't putting customer at the center of your whole life cycle and the whole of your company, your business, you're going to be left behind. And I think, as whether you're SaaS or not, you need to be operating in that way. Gone are the days of hit and run, go in and sell and walk away, and I'll see you in 3 years and you can sign the contract again. It's now about getting the customer to value realization, and that means taking that customer on a journey to make them successful. And so, whether you acknowledge it or not, you have to start thinking about how you pivot your whole organization towards managing that customer journey to the best of your ability. And I think, you have to, it has the capability to actually drive transformation and actually drive a culture change within the company too. So what we're experiencing, what I'm experiencing, and what I've seen with the help of many exec level members at Sitecore is that they really want to, put customer at the heart of where we are as a business. We've moved from a perpetual model to a subscription licensing to now towards SaaS, and we're on that journey. We've bought 4 SaaS companies and we've integrated those companies, and we are putting customer at the center of it. Now it's about how do we transition each of those departments to ensure that they're thinking customer first, and it's not just the customer success organization at the back end of a customer life cycle. So I feel so privileged to be in that position to see it end to end, and I do. I see everything. I have a very big picture mind, and I see everything from right at the beginning, from the product conception and the marketing of that, through to the pre-sales and sales, to the operational, getting the customer up and running, the onboarding, and if there's a partner in there as well, we work with partners, to then adopting once the customer's gone live, to the consumption and the renewal, and possibly that churn in that whole life cycles. And it's about understanding where your customers are in each of those parts of that life cycle at any point in time, and having the ability to ensure that other customer facing teams have that capability and view of that customer too, and having that 360-degree view. So data has been absolutely critical for me in my journey here for 5 years, in the evolution of what we've done year over year, and we've iterated year over year. But without the data and evidence, you can't actually show the impact of what you're actually doing, what your team is contributing towards the bottom line, and how you're actually driving change and impacting growth in that company. And I have seen that, and I have driven it, and I have done it, and I have put the metrics in place, and we have put those business cases forward to actually, get more resources, drive more ability to help more customers, and roll out a full coverage model.
Yeah, great. I'm going to actually ask an audience question at this moment because it's really relevant, and my friend Sandy Hugh just asked it. So Lara, can you please share an example of what a process looked like before putting the customers at the center, and what it looked like afterwards?
Yeah. It's what you think it would be. You'd have a product and marketing and sales driven, mostly product and sales driven organization, and there would be an afterthought of the customer. And until we really started to get our hands around those customers and working with those customers, everything beyond the sale wasn't really a focus. But now that we have, over the past 5 years, grown this customer success team, we are totally focused on how our customers are working with us, and what they require, and then how we're pivoting our resources internally in order to help them, whether that's across the product, the support side, the professional services side, how we're wrapping around services, how we're working with those partners more actively, and really building those strong relationships with them. Okay. So it's chalk and cheese from where we were to where we are now.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that in some detail, because I imagine it's not been simple. You talk about the evolution, and that's a thing you can be proud of, but I'm sure there was a lot of friction along the way, and probably still is. And I want the audience to know that these kinds of transformations generate a lot of friction. It's just inevitable. So because if companies don't transform, they will eventually be diminished. You kind of touched on this, Lara, because technology in the market of customers is moving rapidly. But if they do make the effort to transform, there's friction between people and organizations that change at different speeds. How would you coach a less experienced customer success leader about how to constructively handle the inevitable uncomfortable interactions their team and that they will have with other organizations?
Yeah, I do coach leaders at the moment through a company called CS Masterclass. So that is, something how leaders can start to learn how to get an edge on how they're operating in an ever-changing world. But what I would say and what I'd advise them on is, with their team and other parts of the organization, by creating a vision, you have to create that vision and you have to know what that vision is, and it needs to be pretty solid in what you're there to deliver as a customer success organization, what you stand for, what your customer success charter is, so that everyone can see what they buy, what they're buying into, in how you help them. So really where it started was around how it was the sales team that were just drowning in customer queries and support issues. And what we needed to do is we needed to take that pain away from the sales team so that they could go and sell, because that's their job, that's what they're there for within the business. And so we started to work very closely with them, and when the sales team really started to see the benefits of working with us, and it's not just about taking the pain away, it was more around providing them leads, providing them the ability for them to go and sell, which is their job, that's what they're motivated by. And it helps us become much more stickier with that customer. We see a pain point with that customer, we've got a solution, and we see how we can help them more. And every person within my team and every person out there with customer success in their title wants to help people. And that's why we're driven so much in representing that customer. And we're there to, if you have a very strong charter and a vision which binds everyone, that why do you come to work? You come to work most of the time to make things better, and ultimately all companies are there to make money, but we can only do that through people and interactions, and ultimately we're there for our customers. So I'd say vision, you've got to back it up by data for sure. You've got to know your plan every year, right? My gig here has been 5 years, and I'm not looking at moving anywhere yet, because there's so much stuff I can do here. You've got to have a yearly plan. You've got to have your strategy on how you want it to change. You pivot everyone's objectives, you drive that change, you communicate that change regularly as well, and you show year over year what that data and impact and growth and success is from your team. So the PRing piece is also really important. And however small or big, it's really important to show those developments and show with tenacity how you are changing the organization. And if sometimes you only have a piece of the whole life cycle, but if you can really change how that operates and make it such a success and show the growth capability within there and the developments in there, it has a knock-on effect across the rest of the life cycle. And that's what I've really seen. Other areas to that individual who's less experienced is, you're going to get a couple of things like pushback. You're going to get people that don't believe, and you're going to get people that don't want to come on your journey. That's okay. Just keep going, because those people and those naysayers will just come and go out of the business. And I've seen it. So it's important just to stay on track and ensure that you are representing what you set out to do.
Yeah, so there's a few things I heard, really, like persistence. I think invariably you have to have a passion and an authentic kind of curiosity and interest in pursuing this. But I also heard you say something that I think people sometimes don't think about, is it's not just the leader's job to do this. It requires, and I think you actually said this, that all of the customer success professionals in your organization believe in this. And I've always advocated that individual contributors can also be evangelists of this strategy. They're not responsible for taking the lead on it necessarily, but they have a role to play in its eventual kind of adoption throughout the company. Because of all the conversations that they have with other organizations, they should take the opportunity to educate and drive awareness.
And it's really important that you have that clear vision and you're communicating that clear vision all the time. and that you have leaders, managers in there that are very clear in how you want to build the organization and how and what's acceptable, and ensure that you're constantly, if something goes awry and it's not along the same lines as how we should be operating, it's actually pulling it up and going, no, that shouldn't be right. And it is the constant education, and that's what we've done. It was very hard at the beginning, because you're constantly battling, and you're up against fires the whole time, not only internally, but with customers that you're trying to solve for. So it was very difficult, and you had to have a strong group of people that were set very culturally on the same path, and people that had tenacity to just make sure that it was going to go down that road that they wanted it to go down, and just kept going and going and going. And if I look across my team, I have incredible set of individuals that started at the beginning that are still with me. That's and fantastic. There's not that many people that have left this journey, because they just know it keeps iterating and getting better and better every year, and we're part of something. We've grown it together, and that's what's just been so much fun.
Yeah, I think that's a testimony to your skills, and probably Lee Miles' skills as leaders, able to articulate a vision that people really get inspired by and want to buy into. I want to touch on something you've mentioned a few times, and that's customer data. And I think of customer data as the enabling fuel for a company. It's one thing to say that we should always be learning from our clients, our customers, to improve the way we iterate our products or improve our services. And I want to bring in a question that Linda Sharp asked from the audience, and let's get it specific. So how does customer success, how can they drive closer relationship, maybe improvement in the way sales and finance work with customer success to the benefit of the customer? Can you think of kind of examples of that? How to use data to work closer with those organizations?
Yeah, I mean, we started off we were managing our high touch segment, our largest revenue segment. We didn't have that many CSMs, and we were measuring some data points, but it wasn't until we really started to dig into, and it was a good year or 18 months after we really started the team, that we really we looked at data, and those data points were mainly around revenue growth, whether it would be the renewal and that end of term renewal rate, the gross revenue, as well as the net revenue. It was NPS score and customer engagement, and we did look at term of customer, and we tried to do some data analysis around lifetime value. We do a lot of it operationally ourselves, and I put a case in to get an operations team, and I really strongly believe that once you get over a certain number of people in a team, that you really need an operations team to help you in customer success, because when you're rolling out not only just to high touch, but then you roll out to mid touch and automated and digital touch, and however you want to segment your audience and however big it is, you need to have that operational cadence to do that. So I think analytics has really helped us understand where we should be targeting. And we're getting to, we've gone through that whole process of now showing where and why we should be focused on specific customers, what we're doing with those customers, how the product interplay works, but also once you understand your customers, you can start to build strategies around the cross-sell, upsell. And that's where, customer CSQLs come in, and the lead and pipeline piece really comes in. That has really started to take a larger proportion in Sitecore as to how we drive pipeline, which is really exciting. That's good. And so there has been, that evolution has been there, because we decided we were going to get a platform like Gainsight, and we needed to demonstrate it was to ourselves initially about managing customers. But when you start looking at how you can measure and monitor and drive customer engagement, and you can then share that data insight with the sales team through, the Salesforce widget, and they can have certain access to certain data. And getting that 360-degree view is so important. Then you can start overlaying things with, the finance and billing side. You can start to understand when customers haven't actually paid their bills, whether they need our help in order to chase that up. And it kind of then starts to spiral into, what customers are in a certain risk bucket. And then you can start doing, profiling and analytics around those risks of customers and the renewals, and it just goes on and on. Literally, you open that door and then you've just got so much information. It's about how do you then use that information in the right way to set a proper strategy to deliver the maximum amount for your customers, but also across the business as a team, and individually, right? So it's not just about, it's about then you can use those targets, you can set MBOs, you can set KPIs on what specific portfolios should be delivering. So I think if I look at it from my perspective, you need to be able to have a system like that to scale, and in order to tie up the understanding of customers across different team requirements. Every team's got a different requirement. But with customer success, if you've got all of the data, you understand how and who needs to be marketed to for a specific campaign or product, or potentially there's product information or changes, and you can manage all of this stuff at scale. But without that, you just can't. So you can also it's helped us with NPS and surveys and customer engagement scores, health scores. It helps you understand the segmentation as well. And success planning is also a key piece to it, tracking QBRs and what you need to do within those QBRs and setting those templates. So you can actually then work at scale and understand how customers are adopting. And we're getting to the point now where we've worked with very little telemetry, and that is another exciting milestone for us, because we're talking about telemetry too now. How we can help our customers by understanding more and then preempting what they need with regards to training and adoption. So yeah, evolution.
That's I think you just concluded like 5 or 6 minute advertisement for customer success operations, which is fantastic.
It's invaluable. I couldn't do anything without my operations team.
Yeah, and I think that's a really critical message to communicate in the market, is that because so much of the customer success community is focused on doing things that they believe customers will benefit from. Some of those things you mentioned, QBRs and success plans and all those things. But what I really liked about what you said was all that the measurement of the effectiveness of those things. How do you know whether those things are having the impact that they should have with customers if you're not observing and measuring their effectiveness?
And that's what we didn't know for those first 18 months, how effective. We knew we were being effective because customers told us, but we couldn't put our finger on it and measure it until we really started to get a lot of this data into a platform like Gainsight and really start to analyze it. But it's not, the operations team's not just there for the business understanding, it's also there for your CSMs to help them, enable them to function, because as you grow and the number of products grow, the company changes, and we've gone through so much change every year. We've needed to ensure that our teams are able to operate properly and functionally, and that's another role of the operations team to help us do that.
Yeah, the productivity improvements for CSMs. I remember way back when I was a CSM, and we didn't have the infrastructure to kind of measure our effectiveness. So we'd be asked, on a quarterly or annual basis, how did you do? How effective were your executive meetings? Well, I guess we have to go ask the customer now. So it's all like a backward looking thing. Whereas if you have a team and a structure in place, then those things should be more just in time kind of measurement and improvements in a much more rapid fashion, I would say.
Yeah.
So you presented at Gainsight Pulse EMEA last year, and I reviewed the presentation. You mentioned that Sitecore has evolved its customer success practice from a conventional high-touch model that handled 400 customers to a full coverage model covering 3,100. First of all, congratulations. That's really significant. Help us understand the elements of that change. How did the practice evolve to handle so many more customers? And what are a few indicators that you're seeing that the change has been good for customers and for Sitecore?
Yeah. So it comes down to a number of things. You know, I said to you, I feel very privileged to be in the center of the company in customer success. And I really position myself there and the rest of the team because I see stuff end to end. I see everything that, you know, goes wrong at the beginning, or things that happen, and then they come to the customer success team to help fix and sort out. And, you know, you start to look at what needs to be aligned and what teams need to be aligned in order to ensure we're delivering for the customer. So I think when you look at it from a whole life cycle perspective, we had to really focus in on the high revenue customers initially. So we built out high touch, and then we built out mid touch, and it was built around very few resources initially. And then because I had all of the data to prove out the impact we were having across the rest of the business and the growth milestones that we put in place, and those specific KPIs, we got further investment and we built out mid touch. But every single time we did this, we needed to set out our stand as to what we were going to be delivering for these customers, how the portfolios were going to be set out, who were those customers, and how would we be managing, what's the cadence of managing a mid-touch customer versus a high-touch customer versus a digital touch, or even, you know, when you get to building out an automated touch program too. So that was, it started there. And then we got further investment, and we did build out a digital touch segment. So we had to really, you know, we've got a lot of customers, so we needed to work out what was the best way we were going to operate. And we knew we wanted to run in an onboarding, adoption, consumption, renewal model. And we needed to work out what all of the pieces end to end, what were the stages these customers would go for, what's the cadence of engagement with those customers, and you know, what were the tactics that we were going to use in order to manage those customers, and what customers had partners that were very engaged, and how are we going to operate with partner managers too, you know. So there was a whole, we are the center of how this customer operates with product and professional services, and how we engage with professional services and what that ratio was versus how we engage with an AE across those customers. And so a lot of that we've tried to automate to a degree within customer success, but what we haven't done yet is actually we're looking at, you know, we're building out the lifecycle capability, and I think over the next year that's going to be put in place in order for us to operate end to end and pick up some of those things that happen in the, you know, sales cycle that potentially has impact on the customer when the customer success manager picks it up, in terms of expectations a lot of the time, or what the product can do, and how and what is required from that customer. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do is to actually outline what success means. And I think there aren't that many companies I've worked in. I worked at a lot of the big ones where it's really defined across a product. So, you know, for a salesperson to go in and sell a product and define what success actually means to the customer, because it's not just about selling the product, it's about solving a solution, solving a problem, and actually providing a solution to that problem. But it is also about what does success mean? Because once that signature is on that piece of paper, then it's about the implementation of what they need to do to get there, to adopt it, to solve that problem. And they need to know what the end goal is. So if a CSM knows what that end goal is, then it's an easier process to get to. And a lot of that, you know, problem is then solved by understanding that you've got to that value realization point. So there's been a whole evolution as to where we've come from and how we've got to where we are now. But every single year, there's been iterations, there's change. We've not stayed still. It's been an ever evolving organization in customer success. But now I'm really starting to see the catalyst as to how we can help the rest of the organization line to become more customer first.
So we didn't talk about this in our prep, but I'm just going to throw you a little bit of a deeper angle on this. I'm curious if you have kind of a strategy or a methodology for, in your senior role, for ensuring that the leaders that need to implement all this stuff through the organizations are effectively equipped with information, with guidance. Like how do you go about making sure that what you and Lee need to have will unfold the way you envision it
across the other departments?
Well, just within customer success even.
Yeah, and a lot of it is me evangelizing a lot of the time as to how I envision it to become. And we, it's not just my strategy at all. We all do it, all of us develop it together. And I think that's why it's become such a emotion, right? Okay. We all believe that we all are working in the same way. And the more people you get working, it's like a wave in the same way, the easier it becomes and the more momentum it creates. And I think from my perspective, in terms of the life cycle side of how we need to evolve to our customers and align every single department to make it way more fluid, and it just so it's easier to do business with us, and we don't hit bumps in the road because everything's been aligned a bit more, is that it's about going out and speaking to those leaders across those teams regularly. It's not about just doing it once in a while. Like I've done a whole raft of all the exec level members and their teams, and over the past 6 weeks, and I think I need to do it again, starting again in March, to give them an update on where I think and how I think it should be operating. And some of it is about creating a vision and taking those individuals on that vision, but a lot of them are aligned anyway. They're like, God, we've wanted this for such a long time.
Yeah.
And then, when you haven't got any feedback and people are just sitting there listening, it's about asking those questions. Do you really think that this is something that we should be doing? Do you think this is going to make a difference to your world if we did this?
Yeah.
And every team says yes. So for me, it's about the communication is so important, and just talking about what you want to achieve, why. And it also, people start to believe, or they buy into you as an individual. And I'm so passionate about what I do here. I really, I hope that they take that passion on board, and it kind of builds momentum in their mind, because everybody should be thinking customer first, because that's what I think, right? But it's about, if everyone did, we'd all create, we'd all be part of something far more greater with greater value. It's not just about coming to work to do a job. It's about there's a vision and everyone's moving in that same direction. Yeah,
I think we all want purpose. And I like that you just made that point, that coming to work should be more than about coming to work. It should be about wanting to create something larger. And I agree with you. I mean, having been involved and still being involved in these sorts of things, these are larger things that excite me and inspire me. And just speaking about inspiration, can we just talk a little bit about your boss? I've met Lee Miles. He's the Chief Customer Success Officer at Sitecore. And as much as you can you tell us how important it's been for you to have a leader like Lee in place? And, and secondly, what's he been able to do to improve the odds of a successful company transformation? Like, how does he operate at his level to keep things steering in the right direction?
Yeah. It's been exceptional for me on my journey here, because it's helped me. Lee came in a couple of years ago, and we were at the cusp of the growth side of developing out a full end-to-end model. He helped us get there. So it's been exceptional seeing what he's done initially around customer success, professional services, training, support, and how he aligned all of that organization to now taking over. He's still got customer success, chief customer officer title, but he's also running sales. So for him to really now dig into that first part of the life cycle, and he's also very much working very closely with Dave, who runs the product team too. Aligning everything end to end is so important to him, because this is what it means as to operate as a SaaS company, and he is helping us make that change. He drills into situations, so he really listens and he really understands what the real problems are, and then he connects all the dots all the way across. So that bigger picture, and he understands the implications of certain things as well, which is so important when you're trying to create that change in an organization, and to build a better company. And he sees the opportunity here to do that, and the momentum is picking up, and I'm seeing the change, and other people have said to me about seeing the change too. So he tackles the big things, and he's not afraid of doing that. And sometimes, you know, you can feel pretty overwhelmed when you also need to change culture, to think differently. But what he does is he puts the right people in the right jobs to help him operate and deliver upon that vision. And he brings people with him, because he really understands what those real drivers are. And he's been able to convey that vision, and that vision is picking up and influencing others as well. So it's consistently moving the needle over the past 2 years. It's not just big things and then it stops. It's a consistent momentum that he's created. He's very customer focused as well, and he holds, you know, customer success, renewals, professional services, sales, and he's got a tough job, because he's very customer focused, but he's also, you know, he's got a revenue line to run. But it's a tough balance, but he's doing it exceptionally well.
Fantastic. You know, I just want to talk a little bit about your efforts to educate or raise awareness, persuade your peers in the other organizations as part of this drive for transformation. And I know you and I've talked, and I think you use a kind of a deck to speak to the topic when it's required. I want to get a little tactical here for our audience. Do you have recommendations on how they should you know, plan this sort of like internal journey to kind of educate other organizations? Is there a specific kind of path you recommend for them to take around the tools and strategies?
So I think it's about understanding what each of those audiences, you know, if you go in and talk to products, you're going to talk to legal, finance, sales, it's about understanding what each of those audiences are looking for and how you interact and weave with them, because they see you from a certain way. So it's about elevating yourselves and elevating the picture that you need those individuals to see initially. And that picture and that vision is obviously about, you know, where the company's going, how we're going to get there. What do they know how we're going to get there? It's a pretty big step as to what our vision and where we want to go. And I see it absolutely achievable, but lots of people don't. So it's about showing how you believe that we can get there and what it means to you as to how we go about doing it. So it's definitely the vision piece, which is the why and the what, and then it's about the delivery piece, which is the how are we going to do it, what do we need from you, how do you need to operate differently in order for us to get there. And you know, when you go into a job and it just seems so overwhelming. And I was there, and I said to you earlier in this conversation, I was there. I remember sitting at my desk in London, and I just thought, my God, this place, I just don't know how I'm going to do it, because there's just so much to do. How and what do I tackle first? And I think going back to that Lara that was sitting at the desk, I'd probably just tell her to focus in on what you can change. and build. So don't have the vision in mind, but you have to have your plan. Like this year, I'm going to do these 3 things. If I get these 3 things done, we'll be able to move to the next 3 things. But it definitely, for me, it was around building something small, but proving. You got to prove your case the whole time, and you only prove your case through utilization of data. And using that data to build a bigger case for further investment. And once you start taking problems away from other teams too, then that really helps in what you're driving for and what impact you're actually having across the rest of the business. And then the more people you get, the better it becomes, because you can do more things. And then it's building out the operations team to do that. And then it's actually building momentum around, where does the business actually need us? Yes, it's across the accounts and the customers, but what big things are we going through at the moment that we can assist with? So we're transitioning, to SaaS. So how do we help the rest of the business grow the SaaS revenues too? So it's about the growth element of that, and how we transition our customers, how we position our products and to our customers that need our help to solve a problem.
Yeah. So I think what you're describing is because, this whole topic is really about how customer success can ignite transformation within a company. It requires the customer success leadership to really be open-minded and become students of the rest of the business in order to kind of be in a position to kind of get them to be allies on board with this mission. Because I think too often, and this is where I want to bring in the topic of the word ego into the conversation, because I think our egos as leaders can sometimes get in our way if we want to present ourselves as having all the answers and you just need to get on board. I think there's better winning propositions, right? And I think your story is that, which is to say you've educated yourself about what sales needs, what marketing needs, what support needs, what product needs, and then you try to inform them about what the company needs and why we all have to be in this together. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is fair. And, even building, good, strong relationships with other leaders within your function. I sit alongside professional services and training, and it's about how we work together to achieve that overall goal. And sometimes, you just, in other organizations that I've worked, I've never thought about it in this way. I've thought about all those people that sit alongside me as competitors. But now I don't. I see them as, we're symbiotic, we're part of the same function. We need to work out how we get to the overall goal. Like if the company says they need to get 500, 600, 700 million, how are we going to do it? We've got the ability as a team, as a leadership team, to create what that plan is. So let's work out how we do it, year over year, and actually work together to do certain things. And so we've been operating that way too over the past couple of years, and that influence has also helped. It helps put your profile out there. It helps your ability to be seen as a team that is creating that opportunity and driving that change and impact, and driving growth ultimately.
Yeah, I think you want to be seen as the team that people want to work with.
Yeah.
And not be in competition with.
Yeah. And that's a culture that we've created, because I've always said, as it can be, there are times where it is difficult working with particular teams, and sometimes there are friction points with sales. And I've always said to the CSMs, it's about working out how we work with the AE. How do we support the AE? It's not about working for the AE, it's about working as a team. How do we support them in driving their target, in helping that customer solve more problems, and for us to help with our solutions? So how do we go do that? It's about the assistance. So it is about stripping the ego away. And I don't take on the ego. It's about how do we work together
Yeah, ego can be our downfall.
Yeah.
What I think you guys at Sitecore have solved, based on a lot of my observations in the market and a lot of conversations I have, is you've been successful at using the word life cycle. A lot of industry literature talks about the importance of journey mapping, and we just went through that exercise with your organization. Fantastic. But it's a piece of the larger vision, and you've mentioned this a number of times, but I want people to know that's not that common for companies to really nail that messaging, I think. And you guys, in my mind, and what I see, have done that. You've been able to kind of like really get everyone to be on the same page about the importance of the life cycle of the customer versus just landing them and then later on making sure that they get value and then they renew. It's like the language is overlaying that about the life cycle.
I think the change that's happened is for us, myself and the rest of my leaders, to actually talk about value realization. So it's a key word, it's a key phrase, right, in the industry, in customer success, and it has been for the past 2 or 3 years. But as we've transitioned to SaaS, we need to be able to retain those customers. And if those customers don't get value, then they're going to look elsewhere, and that's not an option for us. Right. So how we've positioned it is, you can have a life cycle diagram on the screen and you can talk through it. But I think the real change or ability for people to listen and to really take on board is it's just not about getting that customer to buy the software. It's about getting that customer to have it implemented properly with an exceptional partner, to actually have the team that didn't buy the software, but the team that used the software adopt in the right way to achieve what they need to achieve, and actually for them to get ROI and value within a certain period of time. And if we can get the customer there, we're winning. Then you can go back in, and there's obviously more ability because that customer has got trust with you. They understand that you're there to help and support them in what their needs are and how they're trying to support their own customers. And then it's about, you've got that ability to go in and cross-sell and upsell. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference as to how we've changed our language, I think, is to implement and talk about the life cycle, because there was a lot of movement around the first part of the life cycle always in the past 5 years since I've been here, but the last part of the life cycle is not really a consideration. But as we've become more ingrained as a customer success team in the organization, and with Lee working now across the sales organization, it's really helped influence how that operates. And we're getting closer with product as well. We're getting closer with our marketing team as to how they go to market with solutions rather than product. So there's lots of things that are being influenced. And the fact that I also, I run and own that piece, that renewal piece as well, helps us with the understanding of those customers and the journey that those customers have been on, as well as threading through all of the, the engagement surveys and the NPS surveys and understanding the customer satisfaction too. Yeah.
So we only got a few minutes left. I actually want to bring in Linda Sharp's final question. My final question can be her final question, because I think it's perfect kind of summary. And she wrote, when you say customer focused, I assume you mean more than the individuals, but the relationships between companies, right? And the way I read that question is, we're ultimately really talking about brand, right? Are we not trying to, through this transformation, to create a perception in the market? Can you speak to that, Lara, about how you think about your efforts, your team's efforts, Lee's efforts, the company's efforts, kind of translating into the kind of a brand image?
So the Sitecore brand image.
Yeah, like, is that the hope? Is that Sitecore is seen as like a real customer centric kind of like?
Oh, absolutely. Entity. That is an ultimate goal. yeah, it is an ultimate goal. I really would love to be able to help that transformation come to a point where we are known in the industry for running exceptional customer experiences. That would be incredible. That's the ultimate goal, right?
Good.
I think along the way, for me, it's about being part of that journey to have got to where we are now. And then I absolutely believe by implementing a very strong life cycle and go-to-market strategy across all of the companies we've acquired, our legacy customers and products as well, and how we weave all of that together, we can create the experience that all of us want to generate for our customers, which is for them to have an ease of doing business with us and to actually succeed in their goals. That ultimately, yeah, it would be phenomenal to be known in the industry as one of those top 5 or 10 companies out there that are creating incredible customer experiences and are very customer focused.
And for all the employees at Sitecore, then work becomes more than just work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's my overall goal is exactly that. I want to be part of something bigger. And that's what we emulate across the rest of our team, that is also becoming more of a reality across the whole of Lee's org. And I'm hoping as we go through this project over the next 12 months, it's going to be even more so.
So I think that's a perfect phrase to end this webinar on. You want to be part of something bigger, because I think that's what these transformations need to aspire to be. Lara, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And ESG appreciates the business with Sitecore and the relationships we're developing there. We look forward to more. So audience, fantastic engagement. Really enjoyed the questions and your attendance. Look forward to next month. We'll, of course, announce prior to the next mid-March webinar who that guest will be. But in the meantime, you should expect the recording in the next 24 hours. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lara. Again, I really appreciate this.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been great.
Okay. Have a wonderful day.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.